Hello, everybody. So over the past few days, we have some confirmation that the market is getting back to its senses. That is, that the market and American companies and world companies really are becoming all about innovation, all about the megatrend, all about pursuing the next opportunity and doing what companies do, which is economize resources, create ever more goods and services with fewer resources via a process, what we call innovation. And in this video, I want to talk about megatrends, and you'll see this video ended up taking much bigger proportions than what I initially wanted to talk about. We have to move back to the fundamentals of innovation and of the megatrends and to focus back on the megatrends. That is where the wealth is going to be created in the form of new goods and services that these companies are going to create. The cost of money is flattening again, and I believe over the long run the cost of money will be zero because we have no choice. There is too much debt in the system. The chief advantage of the cost of money flowing back to zero is that it stops changing all the time. And companies have to stop worrying about random changes in the cost of money that can make you go bankrupt. Inflation is now back at the 2% dogmatic target that the Fed has, which means that the probability of a 50-point rate cut on the November 7 meetings are now the majority proportions, right? The market is majorly predicting a 54% chance of a 50 basis point rate cut. We are moving back quickly towards the 0% rate, which is what I love and what I think we should have, not because it's low, but because that means that zero is zero and you're not really setting the cost of money anymore if it's just flat. I want it to be flat because what happened, and we will see this, I really fundamentally believe that over the next few years, we will see the world of hurt that this has created. Many innovative companies who were focusing on innovation to create more goods and services went bankrupt. I quickly started doing research on those companies that went bankrupt. It's in the thousands. And as far as public companies, it's more than 300. So let me just a few examples. For example, NVDA was a very innovative company in the genetics space. It was more close to a $10 billion valuation at the peak, thanks to the Fed, bankrupt, right? We can think about Silicon Valley Bank in many ways, right? We can think about so many companies that have had to worry not about their innovation, not about their product. They've had to worry about the Fed lying and raising rates 20-fold right after they had said, we're not thinking about raising rates. You know, if you had listened to anyways, I'm done with that. You know, I could show you over example, right? Rivian, why is Rivian not doing well? Well, you know, probably they don't have a better product than Tesla. That's one aspect. But another aspect also is the interest rate environment and people stopping buying cars. And so all of these EVs that had made plans, well, they can't sell it. That's all related to the cost of money, not what I care about, not what I think most viewers of my channel care about. We care about innovation. We want to talk about innovation. And so that's what this video was supposed to be about, the acceleration of the megatrends. And I want to talk about 4 megatrends now, and you'll see it will go from the clearest to perhaps the least clear of them all. I'll conclude the video with quantum computing as well. I'll compute it. Okay, so let me get started with a megatrend that megatrend I've known to be clear since 2015, which is Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, you know, it's just a name. We could call it digital property, the invention of digital property. This is what Gen Z wants. This is what Gen Alpha wants. You know, if you ever see Gen Alpha, the 10-year-old of today, they want Robux for their birthday. Robux is still going strong. And what is Gen going to want? Well, nobody really knows what Gen is going to want. But I can tell you one thing is that it's Bitcoin, not bonds. It's kind of my quote that I've been repeating in a lot of videos. Bitcoin, not bonds. And it's not a Bitcoin maxi video in any way. It's just that we've invented digital property. We've invented property that doesn't need to be trusted, that doesn't depend on human behavior, property that just depends on code and energy. That is what Bitcoin is. And of course, this has been a constant for me and my investing. Bitcoin, has almost always been a big position for me, at least since 2018. I've been on and off in Bitcoin since 2015. Unfortunately, made a lot of mistakes because, and you'll see this is true of all of these innovations, they tend to be heavily hated, right? And to quote, Marcus Aurelius, think for yourself. This is a form of thinking, a form of philosophy that takes decades to develop. When I think of myself back in 2015, selling my Bitcoin, which I'm still pissed about. Well, guess what? I was in my mid-20s. I didn't have the philosophical wherewithal to hold on to your facts. Your facts, your reasoning is what should matter when you invest, not what people who are more educated say than you are going to tell you. Right? What, or better status or better rank? Ask yourself, is the status, is the rank, is that an indication of a person's smarts, or is that an indication of the value of the rank? Right? You're correct because your facts and your reasoning is correct. You're not correct because people agree with you or disagree with you. That's how I feel about Bitcoin. And I've in the early days of the channel, I was making these longer videos. You can see this was like a month into the creation of a channel. I'm very thankful for over 100 views. Actually, the 2 people who commented on that video are still regular viewers on the channel, believe it or not. Anyways, Bitcoin was trading at 16,000. And I was talking about how, I had this crazy belief in Bitcoin after it had went all the way from the 60,000 to the 15,000, and everybody was saying it was dead. And I was like, nope, I'm buying Bitcoin. Of course, now it's history. This is, I don't want to take a victory lap or anything like that, but obviously MicroStrategy is about a 10x from this video. Bitcoin is a 4 to 5x depending on when you look at, and that's because Bitcoin, not bonds. Bonds are going to be printed to infinity. Money is going to be printed to infinity. That is the only way forward. The Fed has told us. You see, the Fed did not decide to keep raising rates, take us into a major depression in order to make the dollar valuable. They did not decide to do that, which is why I am a firm believer in MicroStrategy. Sometimes when I see some of the mistakes I've made selling assets that I've done so well, sometimes I even wonder if MicroStrategy is a stock that I will ever sell, and MicroStrategy as of now is my largest position of a proper stock, right? It is up there with Tesla. I need to update my portfolio in the Patreon, but when I look at the accounts, I can tell you it's pretty nuts. It's very humbling, that performance. And why is that? Because we have MicroStrategy, which creates a Bitcoin yield. It borrows US dollar, pays for those US dollars through dilution in 28, in 29, in 2031, right? That's when the dilution will come, and it buys the Bitcoin today. So it effectively shorts the US dollar with an asset which is fixed, which has a hard 21 million cap and just keeps growing. And so you have MicroStrategy on top, right? The numerator, which becomes ever scarcer, and on the bottom you have a denominator which becomes ever bigger, a mountain of M2 money mass, right? Just growing and growing and growing. And remember, whenever you see, I'm the only one talking about it on YouTube, I think, based on what I see, M2 money stock is wrong. We should not be using M2 money stock when looking at the denominator. We should be looking at offshore dollars as well. And except the problem is we don't know anything about offshore dollars. We have very, very random estimates here and there, but I can tell you one thing is that offshore dollars are very likely a much bigger market than onshore US dollars, and offshore dollars make their way back into the US through international trade. So how many dollars are out there? We don't know, but I can tell you it's about to go through the roof. How many Bitcoins are out there? We know. It's 21 million. How many Bitcoin will MicroStrategy have? They'll keep having ever more because they issue debt, pay that debt off 10 years from now through dilution and buy Bitcoin today. That is the magic machine. That is MicroStrategy. It's very reminiscent of the Soros move against the Bank of England. If you followed that, for example, it's a master stroke. They call this company MicroStrategy. Perhaps I would rename the company Master Strategy or Master of Strategy. I never cease to be amazed by this company, and I know that if you're regular viewers of my channel, you may ignore my videos on Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. People on my Patreon too. I know that this is at the edge. This is at the edge of innovation, at the edge of what is considered conventional and conventional stock analysis. But nonetheless, my belief in this megatrend of digital properties is stronger than ever. And there's plenty of books you can read about that, right? The Bitcoin Standard is obviously a big one, but I tend to get my hands. I go through phases with Bitcoin. Right now, I study a little less Bitcoin because on my channel, many of you prefer a lot of the tech stocks. But I've been through phases of my life where I went very deep into that rabbit hole, and in my view, it's here to stay. Fads do not last 15 years. Keep that in mind. Fads do not last 15 years. Fidget spinners were a fad. They lasted 3 to 6 months. Pokemon Go was a fad, right? Junko jeans were a fad, right? Pet rocks were a fad. I can go throughout the references. Pineapples with royalty in the early 1600s. That was a fad. That, in my view, is not a fad, and I can't wait to see the next decade of this megatrend and how it's going to unfold. It's my bond alternative. I don't own any bonds. All of my bonds are represented by Bitcoin. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but I consider this the safest, no investment advice, but this is my safest investment. This is the investment that I consider the safest in my portfolio because you don't get diluted. One Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. Anyways, let me move on to another mega trend. Again, this is the controversial video. I'm going to get a lot of dislikes on this video, but the other equally sized position, we're going to call it, that I have in my portfolio is Tesla. And frankly, I should make a whole group and call it AI and AI stocks in general, because if you know anything about Tesla, for example, you know that most of the valuation of Tesla has to do with self-driving. Most of the valuation has to do with how far ahead they are on self-driving, and that belief as represented through holders of the stock. At the end of the day, the stock price represents the future value of the present value of future cash flows, right? That's the CAPM, that's the theory. Well, if you look at the Tesla stock price, you can largely explain that stock price based on the present value of future cash flows of, I would argue, given how low the stock is trading, Tesla, compared to what I think it should be worth, I would argue it's only assuming some future cash flows on the robotaxi. What are going to be the future cash flows? We don't know, but it's easy for me to envision a future where nobody drives anymore. We're all amateur drivers, and the first real-world application of AI, the first, and I'm going to quote Elon Musk here, the first mini AGI may actually be a self-driving robot before we get to super intelligence, before we get to having digital friends in our phones and having AIs that mimic things that kind of look and feel like a soul. If you're into philosophy, you will know that some philosophers argue that there's no such thing. For example, Spinoza argues that it's the same for us as it would be for, say, a machine, that we're just biological machines. Again, I'm going to get a lot of dislikes on this video. I don't know who's right. I don't know who's wrong. But I think the first applied form of intelligence will be self-driving. And again, in my workflow every day, I try to have AI. I try to introduce AI. I try to talk to many AIs. I can tell you I love Llama 3. I can tell you I love ChatGPT 4. I can tell you Gemini makes mistakes. Yesterday, I was writing formulas in Google Sheets, and I didn't want to write them, so I asked AI to write them. ChatGPT was nailing those codes, those inputs for Google Sheets. ChatGPT made no mistake, right? Google Gemini made mistakes on their own software. So some companies are ahead than others. Of course, new models get released all the time, but the point is the AI revolution is real. If you've watched my video on Monday that I've made about ServiceNow and how they're slowly moving from replacing all of these agents, customer service agents, IT agents, slowly moving to replace them with AIs and avatars. And, you know, one thing that was not really maybe noticed in the report of my ServiceNow video was about how they are going to focus on quote unquote operational technology, understand, you know, robots in your factory. And of course, only Tesla can get away openly talking about Optimus robots because 99% of the financial analysts on Wall Street already dismiss them, so they don't care. They just get away with that. A company like ServiceNow, which is so well networked with all of the analysts, cannot get away with showing the picture of a humanoid robot, but they can get away with showing an industrial robot from 20, 30 years ago, like a KUKA robot, and say, oh yeah, we're going to have AI control that. Yes, of course, that is the next stage, and you know, humanoid robots, the development of those is very real. I want to point out that, say, if you look at some of the innovations from Japan, the Japanese have been working on those for multiple decades, and we've been working on artificial intelligence also for perhaps 5 decades. It seems like we're reaching an inflection point. It seems like prime time is beginning right now for AI. If, again, I'm just using the CAPM here, I'm just using present value of all future cash flows. If the $3 trillion+ valuation of NVIDIA is to be believed, this is a real revolution. Look at what has happened to Palantir. Palantir is promising to disrupt the entire IT of internal companies, your ERPs, all you've built. You can build it leaner with some of the products of Palantir, going straight through operational software intelligence and not having your profits flow to all of your IT stack and your IT provider, but entirely rebuilding your IT stack, right? Follow that. Follow what is happening with Klarna, who's just using a bunch of LLM to rewrite all sorts of things in their software and entirely cut out companies like Salesforce, for example. There is a true revolution brewing in AI. Look at the last demo of GPT-4o, where an engineer just has AI design a video game. Just the AI designs a video game. We are already beyond just designing a short video. The abundance that this is going to create, in my view, is just nuts. This is actually creating units of intelligence, and loads and loads and loads of services are going to be created out of this AI megatrend, this AI revolution, and the profits will flow to the companies that are the leaders in this. That is what I believe. I'm so sad I've sold my NVIDIA. Unfortunately, I'm out and I have a hard time getting back in, even though I think about getting back in regularly. I sold my Palantir. I sold about half of it in the 20s, and I still have my other half of Palantir, and I can tell you I'm never selling that. I'm not selling Tesla. Well, never say never, right? But, you know, I'm very happy with that stock, and conventional lenses of analysis, our conventional lenses of analysis, of which I use in my spreadsheet when I do this, you know, the EV over GP over RG, the rule of 40. I use these conventional lenses of analysis. Whenever you move into an environment where is far further out of this on the stage of innovation, further out on, you know, the long trend, if I will, like further out on the longer term trend of innovation, our financial models just fall apart. And for companies and sectors in which I have a conviction, like for example Tesla, like for example Bitcoin and MicroStrategy, I don't have a problem buying those, even though they don't fit my spreadsheets whatsoever. And that is because of, I think, the qualitative analysis that I've done on these companies, my own qualitative analysis that I've done on these companies. And so there will be many opportunities coming up where we can do our own qualitative analysis on these companies and how these opportunities are going to be shaped. Anyways, AI is a revolution that many compare to the internet. I would argue that no, AI is bigger than the internet, and so are digital assets, and so is the nature of innovation in general. Innovation gets bigger and bigger and disrupts ever more, right? The internet disrupted more than the telephone, and the telephone more than the telegraph. And you can look at the scale of innovations. And I think I think this is a major mega trend. This is a mega trend I want to be in. This is the future. No investment advice, of course, but I'm very happy, and of course I can't wait for 1010 and the event that is coming up. We'll see how that is. It's funny. I know both my Bitcoin and both my Tesla coverage oftentimes on the channel doesn't get the best welcome, but trust me, I really believe in those assets, and I'm just telling you my truths, right? My own truths. Moving on to two mega trends that I've explored less. And the one trend is the space trend. My only exposure to the space trend is Rocket Lab through Leaps. I remember buying Leaps when it was $4. Anyways, ARK Invest actually has a full ETF on space, which I do not own, but you would be pleased to know that Rocket Lab is actually number 5. She owns about 6% on Rocket Lab on this ARK ETF. Space is a very long duration asset. I'm saying that opportunity is going to be decades, but that opportunity, you could stretch it and you could say it's a century-long opportunity. And then in that case, it's this is why these megatrends often you get more thinking about almost science fiction, which is like, okay, well, if this is a century-long opportunities, well, what does that mean for fields, for example, like longevity, which is another field that really interests me. I'm a big fan of, say, Peter Diamandis, what he's doing with longevity and what that means, right? There's going to be a lot of questions about these long duration assets and what that's going to mean for us. In the case of Rocket Lab, I prefer SpaceX, to be honest, and I know we have a lot of fans of Rocket Labs here on the channel, but no, I prefer SpaceX, to be honest. The problem is I can't invest in SpaceX aside from Google. Google owns 5% of SpaceX, and I hold Google, so I own a little bit of SpaceX. You can get into the Kathy Wood private venture ETF, where she owns a little bit of SpaceX. This is no investment advice, by the way, none of that. But she owns a little SpaceX in there, and she offers it, I believe, through SoFi. Another video I want to make and dig into that. She also owns some of the Figure 01 robot startups. Anyways, you can't really get exposure to SpaceX, and you had to be privy to the opportunity. I think they had a round, like $1 million round, a few years back, where a lot of people in those financial communities that are higher up were offered $1 million, but a lot of them refused. Doesn't matter. Rocket Lab, in my view, it's very clear they're doing well. They're getting noticed by the financial community. Today, the stock is up. Why? Because another bank upgraded them, and they seem to be at the forefront of this opportunity, at least in the public markets. As far as the megatrend goes, I want to talk about the long-term megatrend of space, which, again, should be its own feature video, and this could probably be more than an hour long. But here are just a few things, that we think about in space. First of all, energy generation in space. The moon is said to have a lot of hydrogen, for example. We'll see how that goes. It's, like I said, it's the edge of innovation. But solar, of course, solar panels are much more efficient in space. What does that mean? Can you harvest solar in space and just send it down to Earth through some array of some kind that points at Earth? I believe that would be possible. Of course, with space, more, this is more of a tomorrow type of thing here, is a complete disruption of communications, right? I covered space mobile, which many of you have told me to look again at, so I will. But space mobile, is our phone going to be all connected through satellite? I believe so. Is all of our communications going to go for satellite? I believe so. These companies are crucial to launching these satellites. Then, and this was the Virgin Galactic story. Yet again, another stock that was hurt by the funding environment. Thank you, Fed. But one of their stories, of course, was the disruption of air travel. And so what that means is that if you can go through the edge of space when you fly, just exit the atmosphere, you could theoretically have flights between, say, Hong Kong and New York today, an 18-hour flight. You could theoretically have it in under an hour, theoretically. If you want to know any indication of how fast that goes and how speedy these forms of travel are, just look at any rocket launches and ask yourself how quickly they get over the UK from Cape Canaveral, right? From Florida. Ask yourself, count how many minutes it takes them to get over the UK to the rocket, and you'll be amazed. I'll give you a hint. It's way less than an hour. Tourism for the wealthy, that has already started, by the way. That has already started. We had the spacewalk of Jared Isaacman, the CEO of Shift4, right? That was an example of wealthy tourism, and of course this will come down to less and less wealthy. That was part also of the space. Virgin Galactic company, ticker symbol SPACE, and again, that was going to be $200,000 a flight. Going in space is a chief dream for a lot of people, and there's a lot of people who want to put a lot of money into that. Manufacturing is space, so this is already happening. And this is especially true for drugs. There's a lot of benefits to manufacturing drugs in space, but there's much more things that we could manufacture in space. One of them being intelligence, right? Computing in space. You'll see I get to quantum computing in a little bit. Maybe quantum computing, on a shady part of space maybe is a much better way to go and actually achieve that, because it's naturally very cold up there. Of course, mining of all sorts. And so NASA has already started working on that and sending, ships, bullets on asteroids to try to figure out what kind of minerals you could get. This is the commodities may be scarce because we have one Earth. But then again, if you're really starting to think for yourself, you ask yourself, do we really have only one Earth? What if we can go outside and remember, it's not just the moon, right? There's Mars, of course. Elon Musk's, I don't want to get too far out, but he wants to move fast. I have a feeling, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who thinks that. I have a feeling with all of the delays that Starship is having, I have a feeling that Elon Musk is going to move to Argentina. And SpaceX is going to move to Argentina. Maybe I'm the only one thinking that, but SpaceX could move to Argentina. And if it did, well, then maybe it wouldn't have all of the problems of the delays. But anyways, discoveries in physics, that's going to be tremendous. Unfortunately, here in that case, you're going to have military techs and perhaps the ignition of a new space race. That is already starting. One of the serious threats that I see in futurist channels and people looking at that is the real possibility of, say, for example, someone just launching strategically bombs on the moon, and then you have a mountain or a crater or whatever from the moon, and then you just direct it to your enemy on Earth, and then you create like an artificial or man-made meteor of some kind. And of course the power would be unlike anything. If you're in the US, I recommend you go to Meteor Crater in Arizona. That's always a nice thing to see, to realize the scale of these things and how insane that tech could be. And the biggest part, I realize I'm on the edge of the innovation. I'm on the edge of the megatrend, but the biggest part, of course, is what we don't know. What are we going to be able to what are we going to be able to find out, to apply that we don't know? How is this going to inform us about a lot of the science, a lot of the knowledge? In many ways, and I realize this is the edge. This is as far as it goes from my spreadsheets. I realize that. but you know what? If you look at Americas and the discovery of Americas and everything, you know, Europeans kind of knew until then, and then the Americas were discovered, and new modes of living, new forms of living, new ideas, new just about everything was discovered. And you know, you had the Renaissance, and it was hundreds and hundreds of years of discovery, you know, 400, 500 years of discovery since then. Space may unleash that too, and of course this is way out on the long-term duration asset. This is a very long-term duration asset, which is good because this is what I want, right? I do this for generational wealth. I think many of the viewers of the channel understand that this is not a trader's channel. This is a long-term channel. This is a long-term thinking channel. Theoretically, if you start thinking deeply about this, how big is this opportunity? Really, really big? Well, I'll end with some quotes from famous YouTubers. You know, space is big. Anyways, the final trend is quantum computing. Now, quantum computing, I know many of you have told me about a few quantum computing. What you may not know is that I've been wanting to cover quantum computing for a while. I've been interested in this space for a while, and I've been trying to wrap my head around this space. It is not easy to wrap one's head around quantum computing. Namely, how does the quantum work? Like, yes, check, I get it. The qubits do calculation in different dimensions. Check, I understand that. But how does that work? How do you end up actually making these calculations simultaneously in different dimensions? It's freaking nuts. It's I don't, you know, it's the best book that I found that was able to explain to me quantum was from Michio Kaku, and he's heavily criticized in the circle of physics, but keep in mind, physicists criticizing each other, it's kind of the norm. It is what they do. It's a very ruthless field of science. To me, this book that he released a little less than a year ago, mid-2013, he released that book. To me, that was the best book that I could find trying to explain to me what a quantum revolution and a quantum computer is. And essentially, it's you know, our classical computers, they use ones and zeros, and they don't use physics to calculate. They use just something we invented, digital math. They use our invention, and they try to calculate across our invention. Michio Kaku, quantum supremacy quantum computers, they do calculation not via our invention. They do calculation via our physics and the physics of our world. And you know, the big hope of quantum computing is that there's things that we're going to do, there's things that we're going to understand about cells, about human nature, about weather, about physics. These things, we're going to be able to understand them only by using the computer system of nature. And the computer system of nature is the quantum computer. And you know, this is pretty nuts, the kind of thing you can achieve. This stock today got a major contract from the US government. And so the stock is way up, I think 18 or 19% before I recorded the video. They focus on their own type of quantum computers. There's many types of quantum computers. Some are based on lasers. Anyways, there's different types. This book goes well through all of the different types of quantum computers. There's just a few points I want to make about quantum computers. First of all is the possibility of the applications and what we could do with quantum computers. Is we're going to have much better simulation, much better creation of products, services. It's pretty much going to accelerate the innovation that we could have in many, many fields, because what quantum computers do is that what would take thousands of years for classical computers to do, in some instances, in theory, a quantum computer could do in a matter of minutes or seconds what would take a classical computer thousands of years to do. That's the theory behind quantum computers. Now, quantum computers have accuracy issues, and they need to be very stable, and so a big thing in quantum computer testing right now, and testing them is making sure that whatever they calculate is 99.99% accurate compared to the future. So in many ways, this is a little bit similar to the hallucinations that we get in AI. These are just a few examples of what we could get, but there's a lot of cross-section overlap between all of these fields. Like another field that I find fascinating is, of course, DNA and DNA editing, but the ability, for example, for us to reprogram the letters of DNA and use DNA as computer storage, which is another mind-blowing field. People have been saying that computers will stop accelerating at some point, and people have been calling computer-related stocks, AI-related stock, hardware, AI, computing stocks overvalued. This has been something that is going on for decades. Even in the early days of IBM, IBM was consistently considered overvalued. You know, today it's not. I mean, it depends. It really depends the way you look at it. But these are fields that are often considered overvalued. But the question is, they're overvalued because we don't see the end of it. We don't see the end to it. And so quantum, you know, this is also the whole point of, say, a TSMC. I guess they're trying to work on 2 nanometers chips now. But whenever you get into the 3 nanometer, 2 nanometer, you get into issues of electrons swapping between one connector to another connector and overlapping, because you're getting into the quantum interference and the quantum space. So even getting ever smaller will likely lead us to quantum computers. I just want to spend just a second to look at the size of this opportunity, and this is what they say: 850 billion. This is gonna sound crazy, but I actually think this is very much underestimated. I think this is a major underestimation of how big this could be. We have problems forecasting these things. We have problems forecasting these things, but what Michio Kaku explains really well in his book is that because of quantum, we may be able to cure a lot of the issues that are going on in human longevity. He talks about the relationship between neurons and quantum, and Alzheimer's and quantum, and cancer and quantum. There's a lot of things that this innovation could open up. I'm very bullish on this innovation. I just don't invest in it because I don't know how to judge it. I don't know how to assess it. There's simply so much that I don't understand, and I suggest you also read the reviews of this book and see what a lot of people in that field say. It's like there's a lot of things we don't understand. Even the experts do not understand. Of course, Michio Kaku has had a career as a popular writer, but he claims to be a legitimate scientist in his field and in quantum, and you know, definitely not a dumb guy if you ask me. Anyways, we're getting some exponentiality. We're seeing some exponentiality in this, and so the question is this a good stock to own? Well, stay tuned for my analysis. I will be doing more analysis on quantum because past the 2030s, I have a feeling after 2030, the big innovations, they're going to be space, they're going to be quantum. Things like digital assets, things like Tesla, AI, NVDA, they will be less debated. I think they will be more accepted in the 2030s, these innovations, and these will be the heavily debated innovations in the 2030s. And if you think 2030 is far away, well, it's in 5 years and 3 months, so it's not that far away. Is it? Pretty crazy to say. Anyways, obviously, this was not investment advice. This is no financial advice. This is just entertainment. I hope you liked this video. It's a little different. Please like, please subscribe. Follow me on Patreon if you want to support me. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.